Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Fort, and no, though this is National Poetry Month, and though there are poems that I am supposed to be making videos for, this is not the video that I had promised for today. I am trying, but we do have some Robert Frost for the channel. Robert Frost is always good to check in with, even if it's a poem that this is probably the third or fourth video I've done for this poem. It is a poem that I think is infinitely interesting because its simplicity is authentic, if that makes any sense. There's something about this poem that feels so very human, despite the fact that we are worlds away from the environment in which this poem takes place. The poem in question is Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening, and it reads as such. Whose woods are these I think I know? His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it's queer to stop without a farmhouse near. Between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there's some mistake. The only other sound's the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Here we are. We are no longer using horses as transportation, at least not for the most part. And I think we are probably, if you're keeping up with the news, on the precipice of no longer using cars for transportation, at least not in the way that we think. Tesla seems to be very, very close now here in 2024, April of 2024, to solving full self driving. So you will not drive a car, you will hail one. It seems. Maybe we're on the precipice of that. It seems, if you have not seen the videos, that we are on the precipice of that. Still, you feel this poem, and next month, if no one's driving anymore, if next year, if next decade, no one is driving anymore, you will know this poem. So I think, one of the things that ironically lulls us to sleep about this poem is the rhyme scheme being so simple. Here is A. No, though, snow. Here is B. Here, queer, near, year. C. Lake, shake, mistake, and flake. Now, it's interesting because we are planting one of the next stanza's rhymes towards the end of whatever stanza we're in. So, those sort of things, we are constantly being shown the future with this little planted third line rhyme, right? We're being shown the future here. But never enough to really make us think too much about the future. We're being shown the future here in order to keep the poem going. We're being shown the future here in order that the poem progresses and feels melodic when we get there. But the poem does not really have much of a driving force. In fact, if you want to look at the human level, what this poem is a pause. When we go back up here, whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. Our speaker, our driver, is procrastinating. Our speaker here, our driver, in charge of the horse in question, is taking respite, is taking pause, is taking a moment to gather himself in order that this may be done. Perhaps I am drawn to this poem today ironically because there are other poems I'm supposed to be doing, other videos I'm supposed to be making, which will take much more editing than does this. But this small moment of just being human, of being weak, this small moment of taking pause. And look, I mean, it's nice for a Hallmark card to have a picture of the woods filling up with snow. If it's something that you see all the time, it's not all that outstanding. Our speaker here, Robert Frost, we have to imagine Robert Frost only writing maybe for the sort of Northeast. He's seen snowy woods before. The snowy woods are not this part here. That's not the interesting part. This is the interesting part. What are these promises? Right? The promises here are what is giving our speaker pause. The promises here are what is making our speaker stop and say, you got to give me a minute, right? Listen, calm down, Mr. Ed. We're going to stay here for a second, and I need to just watch the snow fall. There's no telling in the poem what it is that our speaker is doing. There's no telling in the poem where our speaker is going. There's no telling in the poem what these promises are. But if we're willing to look at things thematically, we may have hints. We have here, whose woods are these? I think I know. We have estrangement. My little horse must think it's queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. So, in addition to knowing that it's winter because of the snowfall, we know what part of the winter it is. We are towards the if we're looking at the longest night, the darkest evening of the year. We know roughly where we are on the calendar, but also there is something thematic there as well. What we are looking at is a long, bad time. Winter associated with death. Estrangement associated with trying to find the self, if nothing else. Where are we at? The horse is asking if there's a mistake, meaning our driver here, our speaker, is not normally this contemplative. Our speaker here is not normally someone who would stop and take respite. Wherever our speaker is going, whatever it is our speaker is doing, whatever work and promises he must keep, it is something to which he certainly does not look forward. It is something that he does not want to do. Stopping by the woods on a snowy evening, though it might look just like a very pleasant poem to put on the back of a Hallmark card, front of a Hallmark, wherever you put the poetry on a Hallmark card. Though it seems like it might be a pretty picturesque little poem, there is something darker underneath.